Welcome to Story Sentence. The phone rang 22 times in 1 hour, and I know because my daughter counted. She thought it was a game. I was 300 miles from home, sitting on a beach blanket on Tybee Island, watching my son dig a hole to China with a plastic shovel. My mother was calling from a resort parking lot in Hilton Head. My sister was next to her, screaming at a clerk who couldn't give them a room they hadn't paid for. But I didn't know that yet. All I knew was the ocean, the sand under my feet, and the fact that for the first time in 5 years, I had chosen my kids over my family's expectations. But that phone call, and the 21 that followed, those were just the end. Let me tell you how we got here.
Welcome back to Story Sentence. I'm Rachel, 35, a bookkeeper in a small town outside Atlanta, and this is the story of how my sister convinced my mother to cut me and my kids from the family vacation, and what happened when they tried to pay for it with money that was already gone. And if you've ever been the one who paid for everything and got nothing back, drop a comment right now, because this one is going to hit hard. And before we go any further, please subscribe to Story Sentence and hit that like button so more people can hear stories like this one. I worked at Dr. Harmon's veterinary clinic on Route 9, just past the Chevron station. Bookkeeper, $49,000 a year. Not glamorous, not terrible. I reconciled invoices, balanced payroll, tracked medication inventory, and made sure the numbers added up so Dr. Harmon could focus on the animals. And I was good at it, because numbers don't lie, don't borrow money, and don't guilt you at Thanksgiving. My apartment was 12 minutes from the clinic, 14 from Mia's elementary school, and 20 from Noah's preschool if I hit the light on Magnolia. Mia was 8, Noah was 5. Their father left when Noah was 6 months old, and the less said about that, the better, because he is not part of this story. Every morning I was up at 5:30, packed 2 lunches, peanut butter and honey for Mia, turkey and cheese for Noah because he'd gag at the sight of anything with seeds, drive to school, drop off, get to the clinic by 7:45, pick up from aftercare at 5:15, home by 5:40, dinner, bath, books, bed, repeat. And I kept a budget spreadsheet with 14 columns. I clipped coupons, I bought gas on Tuesdays because the Shell station ran a 6-cent discount, and I put $150 a month into a travel savings account and pretended it didn't exist. I was good with money, had to be, but being good with money in my family was less of a skill and more of a target, because people don't resent you for being broke, they resent you for being careful, for having a savings account when they don't, for saying no when they need a yes, and my father understood that. He was the only one who did. 4 years ago, my father sat in a hospital bed at Grady Memorial with tubes in his arms and a kidney that had quit on him. Robert Bennett, plumber, 40 years of crawling under houses and threading copper pipe. 64 years old and looked 80. His hands were rough as roof shingles. He'd built half the bathrooms in our county and never once sent a bill late. I was 31, Sandra was 36, and we stood on opposite sides of his bed like bookends that didn't match. He looked at me, not her. "Rachel, I need you to handle things." He meant the finances, the life insurance, Mom's bills, the house, all of it. And he pulled a manila envelope from under his pillow. He'd had the nurse bring it from his truck. Inside was the life insurance policy, Mom's bank login, a list of monthly bills in his handwriting. "Keep the lights on for your mama. That's all I'm asking." I took the envelope. My hand shook. His didn't. Sandra watched from the window, and she didn't say anything in that room. She waited until we were in the elevator. Her face went the color of old chalk. She stared at the doors. Then she pulled out her phone and typed, and my pocket buzzed. I read it in the parking garage. "Dad always liked you better. Enjoy your little promotion." I sat in my car for 20 minutes after that. I'd expected something like it. The hurt wasn't a surprise. The surprise was that Dad had asked me and not her, and we both knew why. Sandra had bounced 3 checks to the electric company in 1 year. She'd borrowed $2,000 from Dad's retirement and never paid it back. He loved her. He just didn't trust her with a checkbook. Dad died 3 months later on a Tuesday in October. Rain so heavy the gutters overflowed at the funeral home. The life insurance paid $85,000. I sat at my kitchen table with a calculator and a legal pad and did what he asked. Medical debt from the hospital, $31,000. Roof repair on Mom's house where the leak had rotted the bathroom subfloor, $8,000. New water heater because the old one was held together with duct tape and optimism, $2,400. Remaining borrowings after everything, $23,600. I put $22,000 in a savings account in Mom's name, emergency fund, untouchable. The rest covered the funeral flowers and the reception food because Sandra said she'd handle the catering and then didn't. After that, I set up a $300 monthly transfer from my checking to Mom's every month, first of the month like rent. Except I was paying my mother's electricity, water, and grocery gap, because $1,400 in Social Security only goes so far when your house is paid off, but your prescriptions aren't. And Sandra contributed nothing. I have my own family to worry about, she said. She had Mark, a house with a pool, and a leased Lexus. Her family seemed worried about plenty. But here's what Sandra did have: leverage. She had Chloe and Ethan, and Mom's 2 youngest grandchildren were the currency Sandra spent freely. If you keep inviting Rachel on weekends, I won't bring the kids around, she said it like a weather report. Casual, matter of fact. And Mom stopped inviting me on weekends. I found out because Mia asked why Grandma only wanted to see her on Wednesdays, and I didn't have a good answer. I just adjusted the schedule and kept sending the $300.
Every summer since I was 9 years old, the Bennett family went to the beach, Jekyll Island, Georgia. Same stretch of coast, same rental cabins with the screened porches and the sand that got into everything. Dad would load the cooler at 4 in the morning. Mom would pack enough sunscreen for a small army. Sandra and I would fight over the front seat for the first hour and then fall asleep against opposite windows for the next 3. It was the 1 week a year nobody argued about money because Dad paid for it all. When Dad died, the tradition should have died with him, but I couldn't let it go. Mia loved the tide pools. Noah was born in August, and his first trip was at 10 months old. He ate sand and laughed about it, so I kept it going. I booked the rooms, I organized the grocery run, I packed the car, and I paid. And last summer, 2 rooms at the Ocean Breeze Cottages on Jekyll, 4 nights, total cost $2,200. I paid $1,800. Sandra Venmo'd me $400 2 months late after I asked 3 times. Mom paid nothing. I didn't complain. I told myself it was for the kids. And that's what you say when you're subsidizing people who don't say thank you. I had a travel savings account at my credit union, $150 a month auto deposit, and by that spring, it had $2,600 in it. I kept it separate from my checking, clean, untouched, earmarked for one thing. That was last summer. And this summer, my sister had a different plan. 3 months before summer, on a gray Thursday in March, Mark Pratt stood in Sandra's driveway doing the kid handoff. Mark was 42, drove a black F-150 with a cracked taillight, and sold commercial flooring for a living. He and Sandra had been divorced 2 years, the kind of divorce where they hated each other just enough to keep texting. Chloe climbed out of his truck, Ethan followed with a backpack dragging on the pavement, and Mark leaned against the truck bed and said it like he'd been rehearsing. You know Rachel turned me down for that $5,000, right? He'd asked me for a loan the previous fall, wanted to start a side business installing luxury vinyl in new builds. I said no. I'd said it politely, clearly, and once, and he hadn't forgotten. Sandra folded her arms and Mark looked at the house and said, "Your mom's still on Rachel's bank account, right? As an authorized user?" Sandra didn't answer right away. So Mark shrugged like it was simple math. Book the trip, use that card. Rachel owes this family for all the years she's been sitting on Dad's money like it's hers. Sandra hesitated exactly 3 seconds. I know because Mark told someone later, and that someone told Diane, and Diane told me. 3 seconds was all the conscience she had left. "She does owe us," Sandra said, and Mark grinned and got in his truck. And I was at home that evening, helping Mia with her multiplication tables, and I didn't know any of this. I wouldn't know for weeks, but the plan was already moving, and my name was on the receipt.
Now, here's the twist that nobody saw coming, and I didn't find out about this part until much later. Sandra didn't just plan to use my card for the hotel. She had actually called my bank 3 weeks earlier, pretending to be me trying to get information on my account balance. The bank didn't give her the details because she failed the security questions, but that call was logged, and when I later spoke to the bank's fraud department, they told me someone had attempted to access my account information, which meant this wasn't just opportunistic, this is premeditated. Sandra had been planning to steal from me long before Mark suggested it in that driveway.
Chloe's 10th birthday, Mom's house, April. The dogwoods were blooming, and Carol had hung a paper banner across the front porch that said "Happy Birthday, Chloe" in purple glitter letters. I brought 24 cupcakes from the bakery on Elm, chocolate with vanilla frosting, Chloe's favorite since she was 6. Mia carried the box, Noah carried a gift bag with a watercolor set inside. The party was fine for the first hour. Kids in the backyard, Carol grilling hot dogs. Diane Whitfield from church sat on the porch swing drinking sweet tea and watching the kids run. Then Sandra pulled me into the kitchen. She closed the door halfway, leaned against the counter, and crossed her arms the way she does when she's already decided something. "I need to tell you something about the summer trip." I waited. "We've decided to go to Hilton Head this year. Me, Mom, and the kids." I waited again. "Your kids aren't coming. My kids don't want them there." The words landed flat, like she'd practiced them. I looked past her through the doorway into the living room. Mom was standing by the couch, holding a debit card between 2 fingers. My debit card, the emergency card I'd left with her 2 years ago for groceries or a doctor visit. "Why do you have my card, Mom?" Carol looked at Sandra, then at me. "Sandra said she needed it for the booking." Diane Whitfield was in the living room. She saw everything. Saw Sandra's jaw tighten. Saw Carol clutch that card. Saw me look at both of them and do the math. I nodded once. "Keep it," I said. Then I called my kids, picked up the cupcake box, and left. The drive home was 14 minutes. Mia sat behind me, quiet. Noah hummed a song from a cartoon I couldn't name. 2 blocks from the apartment, Mia said, "Why did we leave early?" I looked at her in the rearview mirror, 8 years old with her father's brown eyes and my stubbornness. Sometimes adults need space, baby. She accepted it. Kids do that. They take the answer you give them and file it somewhere, and you hope they don't pull it out later when it costs more to explain. I parked, got them inside, turned on a movie, then I sat on my bed with my phone and opened my banking app. And a month earlier, I'd noticed a $400 withdrawal from my checking account. I'd called Mom. She said she'd used the wrong card at the pharmacy. "I'll pay you back." But I checked further. 3 more withdrawals over the previous 2 months. $80 at a gas station, $120 at Target, $65 at a restaurant I'd never been to. And that was 2 weeks before the birthday party. I called the bank the next morning. I wanted to remove the authorized user. The woman on the phone said I needed both parties present or a notarized written request. 7 to 10 business days. I didn't have 7 to 10 days of patience. So the next morning, I drove to a different credit union, the one on Peachtree, across from the tire shop. Opened a new checking account and a new savings account. Transferred everything. $2,600 from savings, $1,400 from checking. The old account sat there with $12 in it. $12 and a debit card in my mother's hand. And I told no one. Here's what I've learned about money and family. The moment someone holds your bank card like they own it, they're not keeping it safe. They're keeping you close. And if you've ever had to move your money to move on, hit that like button right now and subscribe to Story Sentence, because this story is just getting started.
2 weeks later, at Sunday dinner at Mom's, fried chicken, green beans from a can, and rolls from a tube, Sandra was in a mood I recognized, the one where she'd gotten something she wanted and needed everyone to know. She pulled out her phone before we'd even cleared the plates and showed Mom photos of the Hilton Head resort. A pool lit up at night, an ocean view balcony, a seafood restaurant with cloth napkins, and prices that started at $28 for an appetizer. Then she set the phone down and looked across the table at me, with that look that was something between pity and satisfaction, the way a cat looks at a bird on the other side of a window. "You can't afford it anyway," she laughed, one short, sharp breath through her nose. Noah was sitting next to me, fork in his mashed potatoes. He looked up. "Are we going to the beach too, Mommy?" The table went quiet. Mia stared at her plate. Mom looked at her hands. Sandra took a drink of her tea like nothing had happened.
"We'll have our own adventure, buddy," I said. I squeezed his shoulder. He went back to his potatoes. I didn't respond to Sandra, didn't give her the argument she wanted. I washed the dishes, dried them, stacked them in the cabinet the way Mom liked. Big plates on the bottom, small plates on top. Then I took my kids home. At a red light on Sycamore, I opened my phone and typed into the search bar, Savannah Beach Vacation Family. At 11:30 that night, Mia and Noah asleep in their rooms, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. Tybee Island, 20 minutes east of Savannah. I'd never been, but the pictures looked like the kind of place Dad would have picked. Not fancy,
not trying to impress anyone. Just sand and water and a porch to sit on. The Tybee Island Inn had a room available for the last week of June, $89 a night, ocean view, which on Tybee meant you could see a sliver of blue between two other buildings, and that was enough. 4 nights, $356 for the room. I pulled up a legal pad and ran the numbers the way I ran everything, line by line. Room, $356. Gas, round trip, about 240 miles each way, $200 even. Food for 3 for 4 days, cooking most meals in the kitchen at $300. Activities, kayak rental, ice cream, maybe a dolphin tour if Noah asked nicely, $150. Total, $1,006. My new account had $2,600. I booked it. The confirmation email arrived 12 seconds later. I screenshotted it and saved it to a folder on my phone called Summer. I grabbed a sticky note and wrote "Just Beach" on it and stuck it on the fridge. No dates, no location, no details. I knew how information traveled in my family. Mia found the note the next morning while I poured cereal. "Beach, are we going?" I smiled. First real smile in weeks. It's a surprise. I didn't learn the full shape of Sandra's plan until after everything fell apart. People talk. Mark talked to a buddy at the gym. That buddy's wife worked with Diane at the church office, and Diane told me sitting on her porch 2 months later with lemonade and nothing to gain from lying. Here's what happened behind the curtain. Sandra booked the Hilton Head Resort in early April, the oceanfront Palmetto Suites, 2 adjoining rooms, total cost $3,200. She put $800 on her own credit card as the deposit. The remaining $2,400 was due 3 days before check-in. She had no plan to pay it herself. "Rachel's card will cover the rest," she told Mom over the phone. "She owes us for years of not pulling her weight." Carol paused, the way she always does, pressing her lips together, looking at the floor, wanting to object but not wanting the fight. "Are you sure that's right?" she asked, and Sandra's voice was steady. "She left the card with you. That's permission enough." It wasn't permission. Leaving an emergency card with your elderly mother in case she needs gas money is not a blank check for a resort vacation. But Sandra had already decided what the card meant, and Mom had already decided not to argue. And Mark texted Sandra that night. "Smart move. She'll never know until it's done." And Sandra replied with a thumbs-up emoji. $2,400, 3 days before check-in, charged to a debit card connected to an account with $12 in it. They didn't know that yet, but I did. And here's the second twist I need to tell you about, because this is the part that made my jaw drop when I found out. Sandra had also told Chloe, her own 10-year-old daughter, that I had stolen money from Grandma Carol's savings after Dad died. She told a child that I was a thief. Chloe had repeated this to Mia at school 3 days before our beach trip. Mia came home and asked me quietly at the kitchen table, "Mom, did you take Grandma's money?" I sat down across from her, and I didn't get angry. I said, "Mia, I have every receipt, every bank statement, every transfer going back 4 years. Would you like to see them?" She shook her head no. She already knew the answer. She just needed me to say it out loud. But the fact that Sandra had weaponized a child, her own child, against my child, that was something I couldn't unfeel. May was busy at the clinic. Allergy season meant every dog in the county was scratching itself raw, and Dr. Harmon was booked solid through June. I liked it busy. Busy meant the hours moved. Busy meant I didn't check my phone. I was reconciling a stack of invoices for flea medication when Dr. Harmon leaned against my doorframe. She was 55, silver-haired, and had the calm energy of someone who'd spent 30 years talking people through putting their pets down. "You seem lighter lately," she said. I looked up from the spreadsheet. "Just looking forward to summer." She nodded and went back to exam room 2. Lighter. That was the right word. I felt like I'd set down a suitcase I'd been carrying so long I'd forgotten it was there. At 5:15, I pulled up to the aftercare building. Mia climbed in first, Noah followed, already talking about a caterpillar he'd found on the playground. 3 blocks from home, Mia got quiet. That's how I knew something was wrong. Mia got quiet the way a lake goes still before weather. Cousin Chloe said we can't go on the trip because we're not real family. I stopped at the sign on Oak Street, held the brake a beat too long. Who told Chloe that? Mia picked at the strap on her backpack. Ethan. I gripped the steering wheel. 3 seconds. Counted them by the tick of the turn signal. "Mia, you are my family, the realest family I know. And we're going on our own trip." Noah's head popped up from the back seat.
With dolphins? I looked at him in the mirror. Maybe with dolphins. What Sandra told her daughter about mine, that was the line. You cross it, and there's no polite way back. That night, after bedtime stories and teeth brushing and Noah asking for water twice, I sat on the couch with my phone and opened the banking app. The auto transfer to Mom's account stared at me from the recurring payment screen. $300, first of every month for 4 years. That was roughly $14,400. I'd kept Mom's lights on, her prescriptions filled, her groceries stocked, while Sandra drove a leased Lexus and told my daughter she wasn't real family. I pressed cancel. A pop-up asked if I was sure. I pressed confirm. My hands were steady. Mom had $1,400 a month in Social Security. She had the $22,000 in savings I'd set up from Dad's insurance. She was fine. Not comfortable, the way she'd been was my $300 on top, but fine. Sandra lived 10 minutes away. Sandra could buy the groceries for once. I wrote an email. Short. Mom, I've adjusted my finances. The monthly transfer won't continue. I love you. Sent it at 9:12 p.m. Carol called at 9:14. What am I supposed to do? Her voice had that hitch, the one between confusion and accusation. You have savings, Mom, and Sandra lives 10 minutes away. Sandra has her own expenses. So do I. Silence, the kind that fills a phone line like water fills a crack. I can't believe you do this to me. I'm not doing anything to you, Mom. I'm just not doing it for you anymore. She hung up. 20 minutes later, Sandra texted, What did you do? Mom is crying. I read it, set the phone on the counter, screen down, washed the dinner dishes, folded a load of towels, went to bed. Slept better than I had in months. A week before the trip, I pulled the summer clothes out of the hall closet. Mia had outgrown last year's shorts. Noah's swim trunks still fit, but barely. And on the top shelf, behind a box of winter hats and a plastic bin of ornaments, I found a shoebox. Brown, dusty, red wing printed on the side. Dad's boot brand. Inside, his union card. A faded photo of him and Mom at Jekyll Island, 1988. A receipt for copper fittings, and an envelope. White. My name in his handwriting. Block letters, all caps, the way plumbers write on work orders. I'd forgotten about it. He'd given it to me at the hospital, tucked inside the manila envelope with the insurance papers. I'd been too raw to open it then, too busy after, too tired in between. I sat on the closet floor with my knees up and tore the flap. One sheet of notebook paper, college ruled, his handwriting filling half the page. And then I read something I hadn't expected, something that changed everything I understood about that moment in the hospital. Rachel, you're the one who keeps her word. Don't let anyone turn your kindness into a key to your wallet. If the day comes when helping them hurts you, stop. You already kept the lights on long enough. Take your babies to the beach. And then there was a second paragraph I hadn't noticed before because the ink was faint near the fold. I also need you to know that Sandra borrowed $4,200 from me the year before I got sick, and I never told you. I wrote it off because she's my daughter and I loved her, but the records are in the bottom of the same shovel box in the garage with my handwriting and her signature. I'm not telling you to collect it. I'm telling you so you know you are not the one who failed this family.
You never were, Dad. I sat in that closet for a long time, not crying, just breathing. Then I went to the garage, found the shoebox he'd mentioned, and inside was a handwritten IOU signed by Sandra, $4,200, dated 3 years before Dad died, never repaid. I photographed every page with my phone, saved it to a folder, and then I went back inside and started packing. Walmart on a Tuesday evening, Noah in the cart, Mia walking beside me, already too old for the cart, but not too old to ride on the end of it when she thought I wasn't looking. Swimsuits. I had a budget, $40. Noah found shark goggles immediately, gray rubber with teeth molded around the eyepieces, $5.97, non-negotiable. Mia took longer. She held up a pink one-piece with starfish on the straps. This one? $14. I checked the seams. Solid. That one. 2 pairs of flip-flops, a bottle of spray sunscreen, and a mesh beach bag from the clearance bin. Total, $34.97, under budget by $5.03.
Back home, I packed everything in a duffel bag and put it in the back of the closet behind the winter coats. Not hidden exactly, just not visible. My family had a way of dropping by unannounced. Mom with a casserole, Sandra with a demand, and I didn't need questions I wasn't ready to answer. 1 week before check-in, the family group text was still active. Me, Sandra, and Mom. Sandra hadn't bothered to remove me, which was either laziness or something meaner. My phone buzzed during lunch at the clinic. Sandra had sent a photo of the resort pool lit up at night, water glowing blue-green like a movie set. Then another of the ocean view from the balcony. Then a screenshot of a seafood restaurant with cloth napkins and prices that started at $28 for an appetizer. Then a message. Mom, I booked the seafood dinner cruise too. $480. It'll be on the same card. The same card. My old card. I read it twice to make sure I understood. Then I opened my banking app and checked the old account. $12.
34, the same $12.34 that had been sitting there since March. Sandra was about to charge a $480 dinner cruise to an account that couldn't buy a tank of gas. I closed the app, took a bite of my sandwich, turkey on wheat, same as every Tuesday. I didn't reply to the group text, didn't react to the photos, didn't send a warning. Some people only learn from the bill. At 2, Dr. Harmon passed my desk on the way to surgery, a golden retriever who'd swallowed a sock. She paused. You're smiling at your phone. Good news? I looked up. Something like that. She raised an eyebrow and kept walking. I put my phone in the drawer and went back to the payroll spreadsheet. Column B wasn't balancing. I found the error in 6 minutes. Numbers I could fix. Family I could not. Mark picked up the kids that Friday evening. Chloe ran down the driveway before his truck fully stopped. Daddy, we're going to Hilton Head! She was bouncing. 10 years old and already her mother's volume. Mark lifted her into the truck bed for fun, then sat her down. Your mom's got it all figured out. Ethan followed quieter, carrying a stuffed dinosaur he was probably too old for but wouldn't give up. Once both kids were upstairs in their rooms grabbing overnight bags, Mark leaned against the porch railing. You sure Rachel's card has enough? Sandra didn't blink. She puts $150 a month in there like clockwork, at least $2,000 by now. And your mom has the card? Sandra nodded. Rachel told her to keep it. Mark grinned. The grin of a man who thinks cleverness and theft are the same thing. Then it's already paid for. The kids came back down with their bags. Mark loaded them into the truck and drove off. Sandra stood in the doorway until the taillights disappeared. Then she went inside alone. And I found this part out months later from someone who heard it from Mark at a cookout. But there's a detail that sticks with me. Sandra sat at the kitchen counter after Mark left and picked up her phone. My contact photo. Me and Mia laughing at Jekyll Island 2 summers ago. Sand on our knees, Mia's front teeth missing. Sandra's thumb hovered over the call button. 5 seconds. Then she put the phone down. She could have called, asked, explained. She didn't. 3 days before check-in, a Tuesday, I was at work when it happened, but I can tell you exactly how it went because Carol told Diane every detail, and Diane has the kind of memory that doesn't drop a syllable. The oceanfront Palmetto Suites ran the remaining charge at 10 a.m. $2,400 to the debit card on file. Declined. Insufficient funds. The resort sent an automated email to Sandra's Gmail. Payment declined. Action required. The charge of $2,400 to the card ending in 7741 was declined. Please provide an alternative payment method within 48 hours, or the reservation will be canceled. Please note the $800 deposit is non-refundable. Sandra called Mom at 10:16. Rachel's card was declined. Carol's voice was confused, the way it gets when something doesn't match the script she was handed. The card is right here in my purse. Try it at an ATM, Sandra said. So Carol drove to the Wells Fargo on Main Street, parked crooked, walked inside to the ATM, inserted the card, checked the balance, $12.34. She called Sandra from the bank lobby. There's only $12. The pause on the other end lasted long enough for Carol to check twice. That's impossible, Sandra said. She puts money in every month. Well, it's not there now. Carol's voice was small. Maybe she moved it. Another pause. Then Sandra said, I'm calling her. She did. I was at my desk at the clinic, entering a payment for a cat's dental cleaning. I saw the caller ID, Sandra. I pressed decline, set the phone face down, finished the entry, column balanced on the first try. She spent months planning around my money that wasn't hers to begin with, and now the clock was ticking. 48 hours. And if you've ever watched someone try to spend what they didn't earn, you know the feeling.
Legend subscribe to Story Sentence because what Sandra did next, that's the part I didn't see coming. 48 hours, that's what the email said. Sandra sat at her kitchen table and opened her credit card app. Limit $3,000, balance $1,800, available credit $1,200. She needed $2,400. She was short by half. She called Mark first. Can you lend me $1,200? Mark laughed. Not the cruel laugh, the genuinely surprised one. I don't have that kind of cash lying around. Ask your mom.
So she asked Mom. Carol stared at the wall of her living room, the one with Dad's portrait still hanging above the TV. My savings are for emergencies. Sandra's voice went sharp. This is an emergency. It's a vacation, Sandra. But Carol went to the bank anyway. She withdrew $600 from the account I'd set up for her. The teller asked if she wanted a cashier's check or cash. Cash. She drove it to Sandra's house in an envelope. Sandra scraped another $600 from her credit card, the last of her available credit. She was now maxed out at $3,000. She sent $1,200 to the resort through the payment portal, but $1,200 wasn't $2,400. She was still short $1,200, and the clock was at 31 hours. She called me again. I was giving Noah a bath. Rubber shark on the edge of the tub, bubbles up to his chin. My phone lit up on the counter. Sandra. I watched it ring, didn't touch it. It went to voicemail. A text arrived 2 minutes later. I know you moved your money. We need to talk.
I read it, set the phone down, picked up the shark book from the shelf, read Noah 3 chapters. He fell asleep at the part about the whale. The next evening, a Wednesday, headlights swept across my living room curtains at 8:40. A car door slammed. I knew before the knock. Sandra stood on my welcome mat in yoga pants and a wrinkled t-shirt, mascara smudged under one eye. She looked like she hadn't slept. What did you do with the money? She said it the way people ask when they already know the answer but want you to feel guilty for it. My money? I kept my voice even. It's in my account, just not the one you were planning to steal from. Her chin jerked like I'd flicked her. Steal? Mom is an authorized user. That's not stealing. Then why didn't you ask me? Silence. The porch light buzzed. A moth bounced off it twice. We need that money, Sandra said. The kids are counting on it. Your kids, I said, not mine. You made that clear. She shifted weight to her other foot, looked past me into the apartment, like she was calculating whether to push through. Then she tried a different voice, softer, the one she used when she wanted something and force hadn't worked. I'm sorry about what I said. Can you help for Mom? I let the apology sit in the air like a bad check. You told my daughter she wasn't real family, and I also know you told Chloe I stole from Grandma, I said. And I want you to hear me clearly. We're done here. I stepped back, closed the door, turned the deadbolt. The click was loud enough for her to hear. Through the window, I saw her stand on the mat for 10 seconds. She kicked it sideways, the mat, the one Mia had picked out at Target that said welcome in yellow letters. Then she walked to her car and drove away. 9:15 the next morning, I was at the clinic sorting a stack of vendor invoices when the office phone rang. The clinic line, not my cell. The number on the display was Mom's landline. She knew I'd have to answer because you can't ignore a ringing phone at a vet clinic. It might be an emergency about someone's dog. Teresa, can't you just put the money back for the family? She said. Rachel. She always mixed up our names when she was nervous. I leaned back in my chair. Mom, you held my card like it was yours. You told me my kids weren't welcome. That was Sandra's idea. I just went along. That's the problem, Mom. You always just go along. I heard her breath catch. I didn't mean for it to get like this, but it did. She started crying. I know my mother's cries. There's the real one, which is quiet, and the performance one, which involves sniffling at precise intervals. This was the performance. I waited, didn't fill the silence, didn't apologize, didn't offer a solution. That's new for me. Old Rachel would have folded by now, would have said, let me see what I can do, and then transferred $500 and felt sick about it for a week. Le father would be so disappointed in you, she said, and that was the card she'd been saving, the ace, the one that was supposed to make me crumble. Dad told me to stop when helping started hurting, I said. I stopped. And then after a pause, I added, and Mom, I found the other letter, the second paragraph. I know about Sandra's $4,200 loan, so please don't tell me what Dad would think. The line went completely silent for 10 full seconds. Then Carol said, You found that? Yes, ma'am.
I asked Sandra to pay it back twice. She never did. I know, Mom. The line went dead, and I sat in the quiet of the clinic for a moment. Then I went back to work. After work that day, I stopped at the Kroger for milk, bread, and bananas, aisle 3 near the cereal. Diane Whitfield stood comparing 2 boxes of oatmeal, like one of them owed her money. She looked up when my cart squeaked past. "Rachel, I heard about the trip." I stopped the cart. She set both boxes down and folded her arms. Not the aggressive kind, the settled kind. The kind that means a person is about to say something true and wants you to hold still for it. "I was at Chloe's birthday. I saw Sandra take you to the kitchen. I saw your mother holding that card. Rachel, you don't owe anyone anything." I looked at the cereal boxes. Store brand, 2 for $5. "I know," I said. "Your daddy would say the same."
She said it simply. No speech, no grand wisdom. Diane had known my father for 30 years. They'd served on the church building committee together. He'd fixed her bathroom sink twice and wouldn't take money for it. She didn't need to explain what she meant. I nodded. Diane reached over and squeezed my hand. Quick, firm, the way you'd squeeze someone's hand to pull them across a ditch. Then she picked up the cheaper oatmeal and put it in her cart. "Have a good summer, honey." And that was it. No therapy session, no 12-step reconciliation plan, just a woman in a grocery store who saw what happened and said so. I drove home, parked, sat in the car for a minute with the engine off. Then I went inside and told myself, pack the car tonight, leave tomorrow. 9 p.m.
Kids asleep, the apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the drip of the kitchen faucet I kept meaning to fix. I loaded the car in 4 trips, cooler on the backseat floor, turkey sandwiches in foil, juice boxes, grapes in a Ziploc, string cheese for the road, duffel bags in the trunk, beach towels, the big striped ones from the linen closet, Noah's shark goggles in a plastic bag on top of everything so he could see them first thing. I checked the reservation one more time. Tybee Island, Run 6, Ocean View, check-in 3 p.m., confirmation number saved in my phone and written on a sticky note in my wallet because I don't trust technology when it matters. I set my alarm for 5 a.m., texted Dr. Harmon, taking Friday off as planned, 3 dots. Then, have the best time. You deserve it. I locked the front door, poured a glass of lemonade from the pitcher Mia and I had made on Sunday, sat on the porch steps. The street was quiet. Mr. Henderson's porch light across the road, a sprinkler clicking somewhere, the kind of silence that doesn't ask anything from you. 4 missed calls from Sandra, 2 from Mom. I looked at the notifications and let them sit. Didn't listen to the voicemails, didn't read the texts. Tomorrow I'd be driving south with my windows down and my kids singing off-key to the radio, and none of those messages would matter. I opened my wallet. Dad's letter was there, folded behind my license. I didn't read it. Didn't need to. I knew what it said. I finished the lemonade and went to bed. Same day, 2 in the afternoon, 250 miles north. This is the part I pieced together from Diane, from Carol herself weeks later, and from Chloe, who told Mia everything at a playdate in August. Sandra's SUV pulled into the oceanfront Palmetto Suites parking lot after a 4-hour drive. Carol in the passenger seat, knees stiff from sitting. Chloe and Ethan in the back, faces pressed to the windows already shouting about the pool. Sandra walked into the lobby with sunglasses on her head and a rolling suitcase behind her. The front desk clerk was a young woman in blue polo, who typed Sandra's name, typed it again, frowned. "I'm showing a remaining balance of $2,400. A partial payment of $1,200 was received yesterday, but the system requires full payment at check-in. You're still short $1,200. Sandra pulled out her credit card, the one that was already at its $3,000 limit. She slid it across the counter like it might work if she looked confident enough. The clerk swiped it, waited. "I'm sorry, ma'am," declined. Sandra stared at the screen, as if staring could change the number. Carol sat in a lobby chair, hands in her lap. "I don't have any more money," she said to no one in particular. Chloe appeared at Sandra's elbow. "Mom, what's happening? Where's our room?" "Not now, Chloe." Sandra grabbed Carol's arm and pulled her toward the hallway, past the brochure rack and the potted fern. "Call Rachel now." Carol took out her phone. Her hands were shaking. The real kind, not the performance kind. She dialed my number. Tybee Island. We'd arrived at noon. Room 6 was small and clean and smelled like salt air and lemon cleaner. 2 beds, a kitchenette with a hot plate and a mini fridge,
a screen door that opened onto a narrow porch. Noah had his shoes off before I finished unloading the car. Mia was already in her starfish swimsuit, towel over her shoulder, standing at the door like a tiny, impatient lifeguard. By 1, we were on the beach. Mia ran toward the waves, ankles in the phone, laughing the way kids laugh when the ocean is new every time. Noah dropped to his knees and started digging. He was 5 and he had a plan for that hole. I sat on the blanket, sun on my arms, breeze off the water, sand already in places sand shouldn't be. This is it, I thought. This is the trip. My phone rang at 2:15. I reached into the beach bag. Mom. I looked at the screen. Looked at Mia, waist deep now, jumping over a wave. Looked at Noah, tongue out, digging. I pressed decline. It rang again at 2:16. Declined. 2:17. Declined. Noah looked up, sand on his eyebrows. Mommy, who keeps calling? I slid the phone to the bottom of the beach bag, screen down. Nobody important right now. Let's find those dolphins. He dropped the shovel and ran toward the water, and I followed. The phone kept buzzing in the bag, and the ocean drowned it out. 22 calls in the next hour. I didn't answer a single one. I wasn't angry. I wasn't making a point. I was standing in the Atlantic Ocean, holding my son's hand while he looked for dolphins, and that was more important than anything happening in a parking lot 200 miles north. Back at the oceanfront Palmetto Suites, 22 calls went unanswered. I know this because my phone logged every one, and because Carol described the lobby scene to Diane in enough detail to fill a court transcript. Sandra lost it. Not the quiet kind of anger, but the kind that clears a room. She turned on the front desk clerk like the clerk had personally emptied the bank account. She did this on purpose. She moved the money because she's vindictive. Her voice bounced off the marble floor and the high ceiling, and the tasteful watercolor paintings of sandpipers. The clerk, to her credit, kept her face neutral. Ma'am, please lower your voice. Other families in the lobby turned to look. A man in a golf shirt pulled his kids closer. A woman with a roller bag stopped mid-step and stared. Chloe stood by the potted fern crying. Not loud, the quiet, embarrassed kind where a 10-year-old understands that her mother is making a scene and there's nothing she can do about it. Ethan pulled on Carol's sleeve. Grandma, I want to go. I wasn't there for any of this. I was 200 miles south building a sandcastle with a 5-year-old who kept calling it a shark house. But when Diane told me what Sandra screamed in that lobby, about how I was vindictive, about how I'd ruined everything, all I could think was Sandra's own voice at Sunday dinner, sliding that phone across the table, smirking. She couldn't afford it. The woman who told me I couldn't afford it was standing in a resort lobby maxed out and screaming, and she couldn't afford the vacation she'd tried to charge to my bank account.
Sandra tried Mark, no answer. She tried him twice, voicemail both times. The manager appeared, a tall man in a navy blazer. I'll have to ask you to step outside. They walked out, all 4 of them, through the automatic doors, past the valet stand, into the parking lot. No room. $800 in deposit gone. Credit maxed. Gas tank at half. The parking lot at the Palmetto Suites was freshly paved and 95 degrees. Heat rose off the asphalt in waves you could see. Carol lowered herself onto a concrete bench near the handicap spaces. She looked 10 years older than 62. Her purse sat on her lap. Inside it, the debit card to an account with $12. Her own wallet lighter by $600, and her phone still showing 22 unanswered calls to my number. Who's paying for this? Her voice was small, not accusing, not angry, just tired. The voice of a woman who'd driven 4 hours to discover that the bill she'd been promised was not covered at all. Sandra paced by the SUV. Rachel was supposed to.
Rachel didn't agree to pay. Carol cut her off. First time I'd heard of her doing that in years. I asked her, she said no. You told me she'd never notice. Sandra stopped pacing. You went along with it because you said you'd stop bringing the kids to my house if I didn't. There it was, the truth. Not in a courtroom or a family meeting or a therapist's office, but in a resort parking lot in Hilton Head, South Carolina, with the sound of someone else's kids splashing in a pool on the other side of the fence. Chloe backseat of the SUV with the doors open. Carol had bought them crackers and a Gatorade from the gas station on the way in. Chloe was eating hers slowly. Ethan wasn't eating. I want to go home, Chloe said. Ethan looked at Carol through the open door. I want Aunt Rachel. Sandra spun around. Don't you dare say her name. Ethan flinched. Carol closed her eyes. Nobody moved for a full minute.
4 hours back to Georgia, Carol told Diane that nobody spoke for the first hour, not a word. Just the highway and the hum of tires and the air conditioning set too cold, because Sandra was angry. And angry people blast the AC, like it's the other person's fault they're sweating. Chloe sat behind Carol, playing a game on Carol's phone. Ethan fell asleep with his head against the window, the stuffed dinosaur tucked under his chin. Somewhere around exit 109 on I-95, Chloe stopped playing the game. She'd open Instagram. She turned the phone toward Carol. "Grandma, Mia and Noah are at the beach. Look." The photo was simple. Mia and Noah on Tybee Island, kneeling beside a lopsided sandcastle. Noah wearing his shark goggles pushed up on his forehead. Mia grinning, sandy arms, squinting in the sun. I'd posted it an hour earlier. Caption, "Beach day with my 2 favorites."
Carol stared at the screen, her grandchildren on a beach laughing without her. She handed the phone back without a word. 40 minutes later, Ethan woke up. He rubbed his eyes and looked out the window at the pine trees blurring past. "Mom, are Mia and Noah at the beach? Why couldn't we go with them?" The car went quiet again, and I think about Sandra's words, the one she said in Mom's kitchen at Chloe's birthday, the one she said like she was reading a grocery list. "Your kids aren't coming. My kids don't want them there." Now it was Ethan asking why he couldn't go with Mia and Noah, her own son, asking the question her words had created. Carol turned in her seat. "Sandra, what have we done?" Sandra gripped the wheel. "Don't start, Mom."
Tybee Island. Sunset. The sky turned the color of peach skin, then copper, then a deep purple gray that made the ocean look like metal. I sat on the beach blanket with my back against the low dune wall. Mia had fallen asleep on my lap, her hair still damp, sand on her cheek. Noah was 20 feet away, still digging. Different holes, different purposes. This last one was, according to him, a trap for crabs. No crabs had fallen for it. I pulled out my phone. 22 missed calls from Mom, 14 from Sandra, 3 voicemails. I pressed play on the first one. Carol's voice cracked and hoarse. "Rachel, the trip fell apart. We drove all the way there for nothing. Sandra is beside herself. The deposit is gone. Please call me back. Please." I listened to the whole thing, 38 seconds. Then I put the phone back in the beach bag and zipped it shut. I didn't call back. I wasn't gloating. I wasn't proving a point. There was nothing I could say that would fix what they'd done, and nothing they could say that would undo how they'd planned it. Some conversations don't need to happen on schedule. They need to happen when both people are ready. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. "Mommy, I found a shell." Noah ran toward me, fist raised like a trophy. He opened his hand. A sand dollar, broken, split right down the middle, one half bigger than the other. "Is it still good if it's broken?" I took it from him, ran my thumb over the rough edge. "The best ones always are, buddy." He grinned and ran back to his crab trap. I looked at the ocean, Dad's letter in my wallet. "Take your babies to the beach." I did. Back in Georgia, 10 p.m., Sandra's house. Chloe and Ethan in bed, exhausted from a day of driving to nowhere and back. Sandra sat at the kitchen counter with a glass of wine she couldn't afford, staring at her phone. She called Mark. He answered on the 4th ring. "Your brilliant plan cost me $800 and a vacation," she said. Mark was quiet for a second. "My plan? You booked a resort you couldn't afford. You told me to use her card. I suggested it. You did it. There's a difference." "There is no difference, Mark. I didn't tell you to max out your credit card on a seafood cruise." Sandra set the wine glass down hard enough to slosh. "This is Rachel's fault." Mark paused, the long kind, the kind that means a person is about to say something honest and doesn't care if it lands wrong. Is it, though? He hung up. Sandra sat in the kitchen alone. No resort, no vacation, no deposit. Credit card at 0 available. $600 from Mom she'd have to pay back or pretend didn't exist. And nobody left to blame who'd accept it. She looked at the fridge. Chloe's drawings held up by magnets. A photo of all 4 kids. Chloe, Ethan, Mia, Noah, at Jekyll Island 2 years ago. Everybody smiling, everybody together. Sandra turned the photo face down and finished her wine. We came home on a Sunday. Tan, tired, happy. Noah told Dr. Harmon about the dolphin on Monday morning, before I'd even clocked in.
It came up right next to the kayak. He held his arms out to show the distance, which in his telling shrank from 10 feet to 10 inches. Dr. Harmon listened like it was the most important thing she'd heard all week. She was good at that. Tuesday afternoon, my phone rang. Mom. I sat in my car in the clinic parking lot, windows down, and answered. Can we talk? Carol said. I want to apologize. I turned the key back so the radio went off. You can talk, Mom. I'm listening. I shouldn't have let Sandra decide. And the card? I didn't know she was going to charge that much. But you knew she was going to charge something. Silence. A crow landed on the dumpster across the lot. Took off again. Mom, I love you. But from now on, my finances are mine. No shared accounts, no cards at your house, no emergency access. You want to see Mia and Noah? You're welcome. Any Sunday. But I'm not funding plans that don't include me. I heard her breathing shallow. Not crying, just processing. Okay, she said. Quiet. Not happy, not fighting, just hearing. Maybe for the first time.
And Mom, I'm not angry. I'm just done being the wallet. She let that sit. I understand, she said, though I don't think she fully did. But understanding isn't a switch. It's a slow thing, like water wearing a groove in stone. We said goodbye. I went back inside, fed the clinic cat, finished the monthly report, picked up my kids at 5:15 like always. Sandra didn't call. Not that week, not the next. 2 full weeks of silence, which was its own kind of answer. Carol mentioned it on a Wednesday. Sandra said she'll never forgive you for ruining the vacation. I was folding laundry with the phone on speaker. Noah was lining up toy cars on the coffee table. She'll have to forgive herself first, I said. Carol didn't respond to that. 3 weeks after Hilton Head, the town potluck at the community center. Paper plates, folding tables, the smell of pulled pork and coleslaw, and too many casseroles. I walked in with Mia and Noah and a bowl of potato salad. Sandra was across the room, near the dessert table. We made eye contact. Hers slid away first. She looked at her plate. I got in the food line. That was it. No confrontation, no speech. Life isn't a courtroom. Sometimes you just stand on opposite sides of a room and eat barbecue. Chloe broke away from Sandra's table and ran up to me. Aunt Rachel, can Mia come play? She was 10, and whatever her mother had told her about real family hadn't stuck the way Sandra wanted it to. Of course, sweetie, anytime. Chloe grinned and grabbed Mia's hand, and they disappeared toward the playground. Sandra watched from across the room, said nothing, left early before the pie was served. I stayed, ate potato salad, talked to Diane about the leak and Dr.
Harmon's clinic roof, drove home, gave Noah a bath, read Mia 2 chapters. Normal Tuesday, the best kind. 2 months later, something happened that I need to tell you about, because it was the final chapter I didn't expect. Carol called me on a Thursday evening, not the performance voice, the real one, the quiet one. Rachel, I've been thinking about what you said, about the letter, about the $4,200. I called Sandra about it, Carol said, and Sandra confirmed it and said she was sorry she never paid it back. And then Carol said something that took my breath away. I've been letting Sandra use your children as leverage over me for 4 years, and I've been letting her use me as leverage over you. Your father asked you to handle things because he trusted you, and I made that harder. I'm sorry. I sat on the couch in the quiet apartment and said, I know, Mom. I know.
She came over that Sunday. Just her, no Sandra. She sat on the floor with Noah and his toy cars and watched Mia do a cartwheel in the living room, and she didn't bring it up again, and neither did I. And we sat together in the same room for the first time in a long time, without anyone owing anyone anything, and that was the closest thing to peace I'd felt since Dad died. If someone needs your bank card to keep you in the family, you were never in the family. You were funding it. And that's where I'll leave it. A letter from a plumber who knew his daughter's worth. A second paragraph that told the whole truth. 22 unanswered calls. A broken sand dollar that was still good enough. And 2 kids who got to the beach because their mother finally chose them first.
If you've ever moved your money to move on, or said no to someone who thought your kindness was a subscription, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Story Sentence, hit the like button, drop your story in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one, only on Story Sentence.